Good afternoon, guys. How are you all doing? Welcome back to Historical Horses. I hope you're having a lovely chilled and relaxed Sunday afternoon. I keep brushing up against this fake Christmas tree and making that horrible scratchy noise, so sorry about that if you can hear that in the background. And I'm wearing this coat once again. I spend my life going in and out so much I just don't take my coat off, so yeah, I do wash it, I promise, because I honestly think I've worn it for nearly every video that I have filmed. I want to say a massive welcome to all our new subscribers. We gained loads of new subscribers over the last week, which has been really exciting, and a huge thank you to all of you that watched my last video on side saddle riding. It's gone over 1,000 views, which for a small channel like mine is quite something. I think normally we hit like 100 or 200 views, so yeah, to have over 1,000 is like quite overwhelming. So thank you very much if you have watched it. Lots of comments below. Honestly guys, if you are watching this video, check out the comments below, because there are so many more knowledgeable people out there on the topics we talk about, and they often leave incredible facts in the comments below, so go and check them out. Also some really wonderful stories, so yeah, go and have a read. Today's video, we are talking about the last man in Scotland to be hung because of stealing a horse, and the last man in England to be hung for stealing a horse. Horses being stolen in the past was big business, very big business, and was a real issue for our country for many decades actually. It wasn't just for a very short period of time, it was for sort of hundreds of years. Horses being stolen happened a lot, and it was really easy for thieves back then to nick them because, you know, we didn't have the best security. Horses were often out in the field, or even if they were in a stable or a barn or something, it was easy for a thief to quickly get a halter on it, whip it out. And we obviously had a lot more horses back then because they were part of our livelihood, they were our transport, we couldn't manage without horses, and so there were a lot more of them around. They also were very highly valued possessions, a bit like our cars to us nowadays, you know, and so understandably so, if your horse was stolen, it was very upsetting. It could leave you literally stranded. If you only happen to own one horse, you're going to be in a bit of a pickle if someone's stolen it. And also, you know, if you think about farmers, that is their livelihood. Their horse helps them maintain the land, it helps them grow the food, ploughing the fields and all that. So losing your horse was a real issue. And it wasn't just farmers, it was those that, you know, worked in the transport industry. If your horse was stolen, then that stopped you from working and earning money and putting food on the table. And the reason it was so easy for thieves to nick a horse is because not only, like I said, it's quick enough to get out the field or whip it out of a stall or something like that, but you could get it to a horse fair fairly quickly, put it in the sale, you've got the money, and off you go to nick the next one. So you had a pretty quick turnaround. It would often mean thieves travelling miles to get to a horse fair, or sometimes they'd take them into London to sell them in a repository or something like that. But it was a fairly easy business to be in, nicking horses. We are going to start with George Watson, who was the last man to be hung in Scotland for stealing a horse, and this was in 1811. Now, George was a traveller, and he was with a fellow travelling group when he came across John Kerr, the farmer who lived in Ayrshire. And John very kindly allowed the travellers to stay or to shelter at his farm one night. Now, I'm assuming maybe he let them stay in a barn or something like that. Now, George Watson did not repay John Kerr's kindness. He, in fact, decided to steal his horse. This was a lovely grey Clydesdale mare who no doubt worked on the farm, worked on the land, would have been used to plough up the fields and so on. So it would have been a very vital possession to John. It was his livelihood, it was his transport. And not only did they steal the horse from John, but they also, one of the other travellers, stole a horse from John's brother that was on the neighbouring farm. So the travellers took off with these two horses. And obviously, John Kerr was really unhappy about this. He was very angry about it. How dare they nick his horse when he'd just kindly given them shelter? So he took chase. Him and his brother took chase together. However, his brother dropped out quite early on. And he followed a trail through Fenwick, Mearns, Glasgow, past Loch Lomond, and supposedly he could follow them because his mare had a broken horseshoe, and so she was leaving a very unique print in the ground, which is what he was following, which is incredible really, and very lucky that she had the broken horseshoe, though I feel very sorry for her having to go on a very long trip with a broken horseshoe. Now, when Kerr arrived in Inverary, he managed to obtain a warrant from the local sheriff and also gained 2 constables to come and help him. And due to also some extra help from the public who had spotted the travellers going through and had seen a grey Clydesdale mare with them, they managed to finally catch up with the group of travellers at what is now called Benderloch, but originally it was just sort of a remote glen. And this chase is quite remarkable, really, just how far and how long and what John Kerr went through to get his horse back. This chase took place over 7 days and it covered in fact, more than 150 miles. I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it? That man was not giving up. He wanted that horse back and he was going to get that horse back. So I imagine he was on horseback. He'd have been camping out overnight. And for George Watson, when he was caught, he was taken to Inverary jail and then he was moved to Ayr where he was put on trial and sadly lost his life for it. But he was the last man to lose his life in Scotland for stealing a horse. The punishment then changed and it was no longer a capital punishment. And I then thought later on, John Kerr then had to get his horses back home. So after that sort of rather large adventure trying to get his horse back, there was no horse boxes to pop the horses on and take them back home. He then had to ride them back. So he then had another long adventure back, but I'm hoping they went at a slightly slower pace. The last man to be hung in England for stealing a horse was John Hughes in 1825. Now, John was a traveller and he was part of a travelling group that regularly pitched up at Itchen Abbas in Hampshire. I really hope I'm saying that right. John was caught stealing a horse out of a stable and taking its saddle as well. Now, there's no details on whether John managed to get away initially and then was caught, or whether he was literally caught in the act. And who knows whether he had planned to go and sell that horse or whether he was just going for a joyride. Who knows? But he was then sent to London, put into jail, where he awaited his trial. But what's interesting is there must have been a bit of a relationship between John Hughes and the Reverend of Itchen Abbas, because the Reverend actually went to London to try and plead John's case. And sadly, he wasn't successful and John was hung in Westminster. But the Reverend had promised to bury John in the graveyard of the church. And there is a headstone to this day for John Hughes, which is such an incredible act of kindness. And it would have meant bringing John's body back to Hampshire, back to Itchen Abbas. So, like I said, I feel like John Hughes must have been a regular part of village life in Itchen Abbas, if that much of a relationship between the local reverend. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe the reverend just really took pity on John. We will never know the truth, but I will read you what is on his gravestone. In memory of John Hughes, who died March 19th, 1825, aged 26 years, a faithful friend, a father dear, an unfortunate husband lieth here. The Lord removed his earthly body into the realms of everlasting day. We will never know the real reasons why John and George chose to steal those horses, whether it was to make money or whether it was just to go for a bit of a joyride. But either way, they paid the highest penalty. And it is incredible to look back and just realise just how vital horses were back then, but also, you know, that they were such a highly valued possession that, you know, the crime for trying to steal them could end your life. Yeah, I was going to say I hope you enjoyed this video, but it seems like the wrong word to say when, you know, these two men lost their lives for it, even though it was obviously a long time ago. But I will see you guys again very soon.